Great, thank you very much. Sorry for that. Sorry for that little technical glitch there. Okay, so let's get started. Today is our session. We're going to be focusing on SAP Business One version 9.2. So my name is Richard Duffy. I am, as you may know, a fairly new member of the Leverage Technologies team, and part of my responsibility at Leverage Technologies is to be the product evangelist for SAP Business One, as well as one of the other solutions that we take to market at Leverage. But today is focused 100% on SAP Business One version 9.2. So having said that, let's dive in and let's talk about what our focus is for today's session. There's really a lot of work done on SAP Business One by the team at SAP. Every time that a new version of SAP Business One is released to the market, they actually go through quite a lot of work getting the product to match to the expectations of the customers, people such as yourselves. We at SAP, and by the way, if you didn't know, I worked for SAP as the global SAP Business One product evangelist for 11 years. So occasionally if I say we when I refer to SAP, it's because old habits do die a little bit hard. But yeah, SAP spends a lot of time gathering those requirements that you have asked for in the product, and the requirements that we have sent through to them on your behalf. And then they sit down and say, okay, in our next release, what are we going to focus on? And then they group it together in a number of these key buckets. So the key areas that they were focused on with SAP Business One 9.2 was delivering, first and foremost, browser access into the solution. We're going to show you that. The next thing they were focused on was helping drive down the total cost of ownership of the solution for you as an SAP Business One customer. One of the other things that they were also focused on was really accelerating the move to the cloud. So it's very clear that more and more organizations are making a decision to move their information technology systems to the cloud. And enterprise resource planning, or ERP, is usually the last one that moves, but we're now starting to see more and more people certainly contacting us and saying, you know, Richard, how do we start taking advantage of these cloud technologies, and what does it mean for us? Also, there were many different solutions that were made available utilizing the SAP in-memory database technology called HANA. And so they've spent a lot of time in 9.2 making these what are called extreme apps even more usable with HANA, and taking additional business analytics capabilities and incorporating those using the power of SAP HANA. We're going to talk about some of those things today as well. Also continuing to extend and evolve the solution. So not only adding new functionality, but taking the existing functionality, listening to what customers told them and told us as your partner about the functionality, and making the enhancements that were requested. But of course, all of this is done in the context of keeping things simple. So, one of the things that you've probably seen from SAP, if you do follow them at all, if you receive any information from SAP or you visit their website, is they really are talking about this idea of making things simple. So the current catchphrase, if you like, is run simple, which works really, really well from our perspective, because from a Leverage Technologies point of view, what we're all about is, if SAP Business One is about helping you to run simple, then our job as your partner is to help you leverage that simplicity, or leverage simple. So that's what we're talking about. So then let's take a look specifically at some of those other areas that SAP had looked at. And let's take a high-level overview of this. Now, there's a lot of content here, a lot of updates, a lot of changes, and I'm not going to be able to get through every single one of these in today's session. So what I do want to do is give you an overview. I'm going to drill down into a couple of the specific areas, and then after today's session, I'm going to make available some additional recordings for you that go through each one of these updates in a lot more detail. So hopefully that's going to work out for everyone. So let's then drill down and look at some of those. So, they've looked at a couple of these core buckets around things like the administration, updating the powerful functionality that's there in the business partner data ownership or in the data ownership overall, looking at making some changes to the way that the approval procedures work, updating the electronic document framework, giving you the ability to extend your field lengths, updating some of the business objects, if you like, inside SAP Business One that could be used with the quick copy functionality. Added some import from Excel objects functionality, and also done some work around localization. Now, of course, for most of you who are on this call, all you're really concerned about is the Australian localization. So what I'm going to do, there are some things in the Business One 9.2 release that aren't relevant to Australia. Of course, in your version when you get it, you won't have access to those functions. So I'm going to skip over a bunch of those, all right, if they're not relevant for Australia. And of course, bear in mind, after today's session, if you've got any questions, you can contact the Leverage team. And I'm going to show you some additional ways that you've got of doing that. And also going to show you some additional resources that we've made available for you. But you can contact us at any time with your questions. And of course, you can reach out to me. Again, my name is Richard Duffy, and my email address, I'll share this with you again at the end, is richard.duffy@leveragetech.com.au. So again, remember, asking questions is always a good thing. So then on the financial management side, the international financial reporting standards are constantly being reviewed and reviewed. So there's been some changes made on the IFRS front. Some work done around changing the way that postings work when you're using the light manufacturing functionality of SAP Business One. Some changes to enhance the capabilities of fixed assets, and so on. One of the things that I really liked a lot in this release is the addition of a new project management module into the software. And that's one of the things I am going to focus on in a little bit more detail, again, because it's one of those things that even if you're in a business that does not use project accounting, you can still take advantage of that project management functionality. And I'll talk about how you can do that in a second. Many of our customers are utilizing the distribution functionality of SAP Business One. So you'll be pleased to know there have been some significant changes in these modules around making the functionality just a lot easier to use. So again, that's examples of where customers like yourselves have said to us, hey, we need some of this functionality to work just a little bit differently so it speeds up our business processes. We pass that feedback to SAP, and Business One version 9.2 is the result of that feedback. When you're looking at that inventory and that distribution functionality as well, you can see there's a lot more there. Changes to the way the price update wizard works, changes to the way the pick and pack works, again, focused on making things easier. The MRP functionality, the MRP wizard, MRP being materials requirements planning, that has been enhanced. Additional functionality in the forecasting area, as well as updating some of the ways that the production capabilities work. You can see there's a lot, and you can probably tell that we're not going to get through all of this, as I said, in this one session, but over time we will be releasing different sessions covering each one of these, and I'll tell you about a new service that we have that's free for you as a Leverage customer. And that is our SAP Business One Tech Tips service, where we're going to be releasing a lot more of these videos to make your life easier, to help you understand and learn more about using SAP Business One. So we're going to be covering a lot more of these in those Tech Tip sessions. Lifecycle management is one of those things which a lot of people don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about. what is life cycle management? Well, this is really how you work with the software and how you manage the support, how you manage the setup of the solution, how you manage, the software if you encounter, any issues with the software, how we support you, and how in turn SAP support us. One of the biggest things with that now is the introduction of what's called an on-premise support user. So in the past, you might have had a situation where you have needed to allocate a user license to one of the leverage team so that we can do, maintenance work on your system. Well, with SAP Business One 9.2, you no longer need to do that. We have a support user that we can use and log on, and that basically means you don't need to allocate one of those precious users across to us to enable us to help you. So that's a great thing, I believe. And then, of course, if you are utilizing some of the aspects of the platform in SAP Business One, you're utilizing the data interface or the user interface APIs, and you are writing programmatic enhancements or interfaces to SAP Business One. There's been some work done around that, as well as around the user-defined objects, user-defined fields, and user-defined tables. So that's your acronym soup for today's session. That's your UDOs, UDFs, and UDTs. No UFOs, well, not yet anyway. But yeah, that's what those three acronyms there are: user-defined objects, user-defined fields, and user-defined tables. So we're going to talk about that as well. So let's drill down and let's look at some of the things in the administration area. So what we've done is the following fields have been extended to 50 characters, and these were fields that got a lot of requests to be extended out because of the very nature of these fields. Fields like your item number. If you're using longer stock keeping unit codes, you can now have that extended up to 50 characters. The same thing for your business partner catalog number. You may recall this is where you want to not only record your code for something, but you also want to record your supplier's code for that same product. And as you know, you can then do your data entry in some of the screens using the business partner's catalog number. So this is not only the supplier, but also a customer. So a customer may refer to your products by their own number, and they want everything done using their number when you send invoices and so on and so forth. Now, if I'm talking about some of this functionality and you're going, gee, I didn't know I could do that in SAP Business One, again, feel free to reach out to us and talk to us about how that may work for you. I'm going to give you some access to some additional resources that are going to help you do that as well at the end of today's session. And again, the user code has now been extended out to 25 characters. All right, before it was limited to, I think it was 8, and that caused some people quite a lot of challenges because they wanted to have user codes aligned to what they were using, for example, in Active Directory, and they couldn't do that. So, of course, every single one of these things we're going to talk about has a benefit. And what's the benefit of these changes? Well, it's really about giving you greater flexibility so you can define, the various items of the same product that you're distinguishing by different attributes like size, color, height, and width. So, for example, I was out visiting a potential customer yesterday, and they had quite long SKUs or product codes. Why? Because the dimensions were actually part of that product code. So anybody who knew their coding mechanism could generate or could easily put in the code and get it right without having to do a lookup. But of course, the downside of that was, they ended up with product codes that are around about 30 characters long in some instances. So this really helps in that kind of scenario and gives you a greater range of naming conventions as well when you're creating your inventory items and your users. The electronic document format or the electronic document framework is another key area in SAP Business One that's been enhanced. So what this really allows you to do, in case you're not using it today or you weren't familiar with it, it allows you to create outbound documents in an electronic format and save them to a folder. So let's say, for example, you want to create a price list update, and your customers who are buying from you have said to you, you know what, we need it to be in a certain format. We need it to be in an XML format, which is the standard way of exchanging data these days. What you can do with this electronic document framework is you can create those files, have them dropped into a folder location, and then your customers can come online and pick up those files. So you can drop it into a file location that's an FTP folder. You can drop it into a file location that's available through your website. There's a whole range of options there. And what we've done, we've added the additional transactions in the accounts receivable marketing documents. So this is things like sales orders, accounts receivable invoices, accounts receivable credit notes, and so on and so forth. So if you want to start sending those out in an electronic format, not just emailing out the printed version, if you like, or what the print format looks like in a PDF, but you want to export it out in an XML file so they can pick it up and automatically import it into their system, that's where this helps. So it really gives you an easy start in this whole area of electronic data exchange and integration. And it's a really nice, simple approach to the whole process of generating that XML output. All right? And XML, in case you didn't know, here's something that you can learn and you can impress people at parties and never get invited back. XML stands for, it's basically a markup language. So it's extensible markup language. So this is the way that information gets stored in a clear text file that not only you can read, but it also has additional information, kind of in greater than and less than signs, which are called tags. And those tags tell the system that's reading the file what that information is that's following. So, for example, you might have a tag which is greater than, then it'll say customer number, then less than, and then you have the customer number after that. So that tag tells the reading system that the following information is a field called customer number. So it makes it very, very easy to exchange that information. Hopefully that makes sense for you. The quick copy functionality. Quick copy is great if you are working through, the process of setting up multiple companies or setting up more subsidiaries, running SAP Business One, setting up a new branch, and so on and so forth. So quick copy also now allows things like user group authorization, data ownership. Those are two very key ones, because many people have said, well, gee, it's a bit of a challenge sometimes. I've gone through this process and I've created my users and I've set up all of the authorizations. Now I've got another user that needs to be the same as that. There was the old mechanism where you could drag and drop one user over the top of another. This whole process makes it much easier. So what it enables you to do effectively is, using the quick copy tool, you can build these templates, all right? And you build these templates in and store them in a folder, and then you can apply those templates. When I've created a new user that's in accounts receivable, I just use the quick copy template to update all of their security records. Now that not only covers those particular areas, but also covers things like forecasts, some areas in the financial modules, the field naming and formatting, multi-language translation. If you've done, for whatever reason, and some people have done this because SAP didn't make translations available, some people have done some translations into different languages. So copying those is a lot easier as well. And that certainly helps us as your SAP Business One partner. If you decide you want to open up a subsidiary in another country and you've had it translated, this makes it easy for us to apply those changes into that new company database. And as well as that, also, if you've gone ahead and you've created a whole bunch of cockpits and dashboards, now this is the traditional style, not the new Fiori style cockpits. I'll explain that in a second, what I mean by that. But it allows you to copy those cockpits and dashboards from one system to another. All right, so that's a nifty thing. Business partner data ownership. So one of the things that people told us is that they really wanted to be able to get more control over how they restricted access and visibility to the business partner master data, and also to the documents that were linked to those business partner master data objects. So, this was really now being able to say, all right, you can say that these business partners or this group of business partners is only visible to these specific people. All right, so if you want to say, this sales rep can only access their customers and this sales rep can only access their customers, that's really the kind of scenario where this is going to help you. So when you're managing your data ownership, you can manage it by documents only. So you can say the permissions are set on the basis of the document, or you can say by business partners only, and then the permissions are set against those documents based on whether the user has been assigned ownership of the business partner used in that document. Or you can say, I want both business partners and documents. So this scenario is where a business partner has an owner, permissions to the documents are decided by whether the users are assigned ownership of the business partner. So if I have ownership to the business partner, I can access all the documents for that business partner. Now, if it's a business partner that has no owner, you haven't set the owner field in the business partner, then the system looks at the permissions that are set at the document. And of course, if you haven't set permissions at the document level, then everyone has access. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, data ownership and these kinds of things can be quite complex to set up. But again, this is one of the areas where, having some templates available to help you with that will make things a lot easier. So if that's something that you require, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know. And if we don't have the templates available, it's certainly one of those things that we can look at having, so you can, if you like, using the tradesman's expression, you can measure twice and cut once. So do your planning and then make the changes. I'm going to get in and start doing a demo in a second of one of these new features, because I know it's nice to hear about these things, but having me droning on endlessly about all these new features and functionalities might not be that exciting. So I'm going to show you a couple of things in a second. So the second area here is the ability to bypass that data ownership for business partners by granting access at a company level. So what you can do is you can say, when this user logs in to this company, they have access to all information. All right, so it's kind of like setting up a super user. You can also restrict reports like the open items list so that they only show the business partners for the specific users. I mean, which makes sense, right? It would be kind of dumb to say, well, you can't do an inquiry or you can't enter a transaction, but you can go ahead and you can print out a report and see everything. So as you would expect, that functionality has been rolled down to incorporate those restrictions at the reporting level. So again, what's the benefit of all of this? An additional layer of authorization and security for those of you for whom that is critical. It enhances the usability because only the relevant data gets seen by the relevant user. So if you have hundreds and hundreds of business partners and you have a couple of different sales reps, by using this functionality, you can just reduce the amount of data that your people have to work with, all right, which makes their lives easier. And it's an unfortunate thing, but, occasionally people have been, victims of data theft from disgruntled employees. So what this does is it gives you the ability to safeguard that information by only giving access to the people who need it. And by the way, if you are covered by, data security laws or data security rules or things like Sarbanes-Oxley that require audit trails and, delegation of authority, this will certainly help you in that area as well. Okay, you know what? I'm actually going to jump in. I'm going to do a demo for you right now, because One of the newest features in SAP Business One that I know many people have been waiting for is the web client. So many people are aware that you can run SAP Business One in a web browser today by utilizing things like Microsoft remote desktop services or terminal services, or using something like Citrix, which then has extra components that you need to load on the server, extra software that you need to load on the PC, things called ActiveX controls which get loaded up in the browser, and then you can basically take any application and you can run it in a web browser. But the big challenge with that is that those applications and the deployment and management of all of that becomes very, very complex. So SAP heard, this feedback from you that you wanted to really be in a situation where you could give people web-based access. So that's what the web client is all about. So let's just dive across here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to Alt-Tab across into my Firefox system. And you'll see I've already been in, and it's just telling me that I have logged out, because after a certain amount of time, security best practice is that your session should be logged out. And so that's what's happened here. And now it's going to bring me back to my web page where I can then access the SAP Business One system. So here it is. This is effectively SAP Business One running in a web browser. Now, how did I get here? Let me take you through this process from scratch. So I'm going to exit out completely. And all I need to do is, if you want to deploy this inside your organization, okay, you pick a PC that you want to deploy this on. It doesn't require dedicated servers. It doesn't require extra server infrastructure. You don't have to go out and buy more servers, buy more server licenses. The thing you need to bear in mind is these processes are going to be running on that server. So, if you plan on having 100 people accessing Business One through the web browser client, then you will need to make sure that the hardware you've allocated for that is up to the task. And our consultants can help you determine how you need to set that up. When you install the software, it's a simple matter of making sure that the Business One client is installed on that machine, and then you load an additional component called the SAP Business One Gateway. When you load the SAP Business One Gateway, you configure it and you tell it how many potential sessions does this gateway need to handle. So how many potential users do you want it to be ready for? Because what it then does is it spins up those sessions in the background and makes them ready and waiting for people to come in and connect. So it speeds up the entire process. All right? The next step you need to do is you need to open up, if you're running this inside your environment, you need to open up a port on your firewall. And by opening up that port, you make it possible for people to come in securely through the firewall and access your SAP Business One system. So our consultants are very skilled in understanding how to do this and understanding how to make sure that we can give your people access to the system without exposing you to any undue security risk. So a classic way to do this is to use a protocol called HTTPS, which stands for the Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure Mode. And what this does is every piece of information that I exchange between my machine and the server is all encrypted. And then I only have to open up one port on my firewall. In this case, it's port 443, which is for secure traffic. And then you can access the system. So if you are planning your upgrade to 9.2, this is an incredibly easy thing for you to start to trial. But if you would like a trial, if you would like to see how this works, one of the things that we have launched is mainly for new potential customers. We do have an SAP Business One test drive program, which is now available. If you would like to test any of the 9.2 functionality, you can access that test drive. We'll be more than happy to make that available for you. Now, just as a side note, if you're wondering how do I sign up for that, we have built a brand new website focused on SAP Business One. You may have seen this already. You may have received the notification in our last newsletter. But this website is at leveragebusinessone.com.au. And this website is jam-packed full of information about SAP Business One, really targeted in the first instance at new potential customers for SAP Business One, but also packed with information about how you can use SAP Business One. So if you have new people coming into your organization who need some training, if you just want a refresher, if you want to find out, about functionality in SAP Business One that you might not have known about, this is a great site for you to access. So you'll see on this website, as you are on the home page, what the site does is it scrolls through a series of these options that are available for you. And I'm just going to hit my refresh button there just to reload the page. And you'll see we have things like an on-demand webinar helping people to get an introduction to SAP Business One, a good thing for new users inside your organization. You might want to point them at this. It's on demand, so you can watch it 24 hours a day. A business diagnostic health check where you can get access to one of our people and we'll come out and help you determine, are you making the most of your SAP Business One system? The next thing we have is exactly what I was talking about, the SAP Business One test drive. So this is where you can go in, and if you click on the Keep Reading option here, it will take you to a form where you are able to go ahead and sign up for a test drive of SAP Business One 9.2. So, all you need to do is come to this page, and then you'll see there is a form on the page that you can just fill out and request a test drive, and we'll be back in touch with you to set that up. Now, the good thing is, if you hate filling out forms, once you've filled out one of these forms, every other form on our website will pick up your details that you've already entered in. So it makes the whole process a lot easier. So let's then go back to our home page. A couple of other things just while I'm here is you may be interested in the video section. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can get to that. There is a link that comes up here on our home page, which is the SAP Business One Tech Tips, and here it is. No, that is not a picture of me, in case you were wondering. But the SAP Business One Technical Tips you can get to just by clicking on the Keep Reading button there. And what it does is it takes you into the SAP Business One Tech Tips page, and you'll see we are constantly adding new content into the Tech Tips page. So that's where you'll be able to find more information about SAP Business One 9.2 is on those Tech Tips. And if you've got a question that you would like to see a Tech Tip video built, please contact me or one of our team and put in a request, all right? Because that is the best way to make sure we give you what you want, is if you tell us what that is. So more than happy to hear from you. All suggestions are welcome. If I get flooded with them, it might take me a while to get to yours, but if I get 5 requests for the same thing, obviously I'll do that one first. Now, the other thing you probably just noticed come up on the screen is also our live chat. So there is now a live chat function on this website that allows you to speak to one of our people. It pops up automatically if you've been sitting on the site for a little while and it thinks maybe you might need some help. But of course, so you can go ahead and you can chat in the live chat service, or you can go here and you can just say end the chat and it will disappear. To get to it at any point in time, you can click on the live chat across here. But remember, This is not technical support. It's not a technical support chat, all right? Still, the best way to reach our tech support team is through our tech support phone number on 1300 045 046, and that'll get you through to the help desk. But sometimes, you just need some quick answers. This is where these resources may be helpful for you. You can also go here to our resources page. And on the resources page, you'll find documents that we made available, Business One, white papers, case studies, explain to you how other people are using SAP Business One. You can pick up some hints and tips from there. A whole range of demonstration videos which will explain to you how different areas of functionality in SAP Business One work. Things like the Excel integration, using the HANA cockpit, using the HANA enterprise search, and so on and so forth. So you may or may not be aware that all these resources are here for you, but I'm here to tell you that they are, and you have access to all of these by the fact that you are an SAP Business One customer of Leverage Technologies. All right, so that's all of that information on that web page. How did we get there? Again, remember I was telling you that you can access the SAP Business One test drive, so you can then go ahead and test this web browser functionality for yourself. So you get a URL, okay, and that URL is usually something like this. This is where our test system is. Now, in order for you to access this, you'll need to get a username and password. That's why we ask you to sign up for the test drive. So if I go sboweb.leveragecloudtech, because it's a cloud system, that's the domain we've put it on, .com.au. And then you put a / and the word dispatcher. So the dispatcher is the front-end task that redirects your inbound web requests to SAP Business One. Now, we want that to be secure, so you need to make sure that you put https:// at the start. If you don't, you will just get a page not found. All right, so if you try and access that URL and you get a page not found, it's probably because you've forgotten to put the HTTPS there. So you then press enter, and it's asking me to log back in again, which is exactly what I would expect. And so here it is. So right now, we have a demo data set created here on the system. And so I'm going to log in with my username and password. And I'm going to hit log on. And so effectively, all of the security, all of the configuration that you've done in your SAP Business One system automatically gets reflected out here in the web browser client. All right? Now you'll notice there is nothing for you to load. So if you, and potentially a couple of you might even be trying to load it right now, but if you hit that website, it doesn't ask you to download anything. It doesn't ask you to do anything. It just takes you straight into the login screen. And if you put in your username and password, it takes you straight into SAP Business One. And you can see this is the same SAP Business One user interface that you're probably familiar with if you're using the Fiori style cockpits. Okay, so you basically have access to most of the functionality that you have in your standard SAP Business One today. All right, so for example, if I want to go into my business partners and I want to look at my business partner master data, you can see how quickly these pages get rendered, and that's because the system has spun up a session in the background just ready and waiting for me to start putting my data in. So, if I want to, for example, go ahead and start entering some transactions. Let's say I'm out on site with a customer and I need to start doing a quote for them. Well, as long as I've got my PC or my iPad, my Android tablet, runs on all of those different devices, I can go in here, sign onto the system, and start entering in my transactions. So I choose sales quotation, for example. There's my sales quotation screen. I look up my customer, and you can see how quickly that information is coming up. I pick the customer that I want. It's just telling me, hey, my exchange rates need to be updated for today. So I'll just quickly do that and just put in a standard exchange rate just to make it nice and quick. I've picked a customer that's using a foreign currency, so that's one of the reasons why I'm now getting that screen coming up. But I can go ahead now and start processing that transaction. All right, so pretty much all of the standard functionality that's available in SAP Business One, you can access through this web client. Now, there are some things that require additional add-ons to operate. Not every add-on has been adapted to work with the new SAP Business One web client. So it's always a good idea as you're doing your planning to roll out the web client, talk to us on the help desk, reach out to one of us at the Leverage team, and we'll be more than happy to help you understand how this is going to work for you. All right? So that's the web client, and I'm going to continue on with my demo now, because one of the other things that I wanted to show you was the new project management functionality that's inside SAP Business One. And you are probably aware that inside SAP Business One today, you have the ability to create a project code, and you can create that project code inside your financials, and then you can take any transaction that you're entering in the system and you can post that transaction against a project code. All right? So, but that's purely the financial information. So one of the things that SAP have done is they've added this new project management functionality. So in order to access this, you do need to go and switch it on. And to switch it on, you need to go into your administration. You need to go into your system initialization, and you need to go into your general settings, and you need to enable the project accounting functionality. All right. Once you've enabled the project accounting functionality inside the system, you then can go and you'll see that this project management option will then appear. So step one, when you're using this project management, is you need to go ahead and create a project. So you'll see this is very different to the project accounting functionality, because what this allows you to do is it allows you to create a project, and then you can go into any transaction and you can allocate that transaction to the project. Okay, so it's not so much a financial process as it is more of a reporting process. So for example, you can set up projects as external or internal. Now, I really like the concept of internal projects. Of course, if it's external, it's going to ask you, who is my business partner that I'm creating this for? But let's say you had an internal project, and you can use this for all kinds of different things. So, think about the things that go on inside your organization. Let's say, for example, I'm just going to create an idea right off the top of my head here. Let's say your company has a start of year kickoff that you do, where you get all of your employees together, you have a meeting, you do some team building activities or something like that. That's just one example, right? You can use this functionality and you can create that project. So let's say I was going to do that. So I might call this is my calendar year 2016 kickoff meeting. All right. So I put those details in there, and then I can set a status. Is it started, paused, stopped, finished, or cancelled? So right now I'm going to set this as being started. Then I can specify a starting date. I can specify a due date. When is this project due to be, prepared and completed? But I can also specify a separate closing date. So again, same thing. I can say, look, I've started this project on the 16th. Everything has to be done by the 29th. But the project itself needs to be wrapped up and closed off by, let's say, the second week in March. So I'll just grab March, and by the end of the second week in March, which is the 11th of March. All right, now again, remember, all of this using the web client. This percentage completion, you'll actually see where this kicks in as we go through. But then you've also got this financial project. Now, this is where you can go in and you can see all the project codes that you've created inside your SAP Business One project accounting functionality. All right, so you can link it to one of those project codes, or if it's an internal project, you don't necessarily need to. So who's the contact person? Again, you can get a lookup in your list of all of the contact people inside your organization. You can allocate it against a particular territory if you want, allocate it against a sales employee, give the project an owner. In this case, I'm going to give the project an owner, and I'm going to be the project owner. So again, that's coming from your employee records inside SAP Business One. Now, you can go to multiple levels underneath this. You can go to projects and sub-projects, all right? But if this is going to be a project with sub-projects, I would tick this box here, all right? In this particular instance, I'm going to leave it as a project without sub-projects, because you'll see what this does. This allows me to then create additional sub-projects. And then each project has stages, and each stage has multiple tasks underneath it, all right? So that's all ready to go. So now as soon as I've got all of that information up to date, I can just hit add, and you'll see my operation has been completed successfully. So that project is now, now in there. So this is where it gets really, really nice, because what I can do is I can go here into my overview of the project. All right, I can go in and start setting some of this additional information. So I can say, well, what's my risk level on this project? Again, I'll say it's a low risk project. I can allocate this to a particular industry if I want to, or I can just leave it flagged with no industry. I can record comments. So this project represents the calendar year 2016 kickoff meeting. All right, so again, put in as much information there as you need, and that's now done. Next step is to go and create my stages. So then I can put in all these different stages. I put in a starting date and an ending date. And these stages that appear here in the drop-down list, all right, these are there, and these can be configured specifically to meet the stages that you want, all right? So these are not predefined. They are completely user-definable. What I've done is, in a previous demonstration, I used our Empower implementation methodology and built my stages based on that. But as I said, you've got total flexibility over that. So you can say, stage 1 goes from this date, from today's date, the 16th, and it's going to go till the end of this week, so till the 19th. And this is going to be my evaluation stage. And then underneath that stage, I can also predefine tasks. So the hierarchy here is project, if I require it, sub-project, then stages, then tasks. All right, so that's the level of granularity you can get to. And then when you create a task, for example, you can put in a description. You can put in, and again, remember, this is not linked through to your GL. All right, you could say, well, my planned cost of this stage is $1,000. All right, and then down here, it's actually asking me what's my percentage complete. All right, so I can put in my percentage complete. I can manually enter that, or the system will calculate it based on how much cost I've actually allocated to this stage. Hopefully that makes sense. I can also flag something as finished. Okay, I can allocate an owner for this stage. But then what I can also do is say this stage is dependent on another one. So those of you who are familiar with doing projects, you know, you can have milestones and dependencies. And that's what this is for. It gives you the ability to say, look, you can't start working on this until this other stage is complete. Now, this is the first stage. So by definition, I can't choose anything here because there are no other stages at the moment. Hopefully that makes sense. All right? So when you've got that done, I'll just hit update. So that's my stage is now in there. So then, after I've built all those stages and tasks, here's where the fun begins. I can go ahead and I can now start to pick that line, and then I can go in here and I can start putting in attachments. So if I click on the drop-down arrow, I'm able to start attaching documents. So maybe I got a quote from, 3 different hotels to host the event. So I can attach each one of those quotes here as an attachment. I can manage an issues list against my project. So I can create issues in the system. These are user definable. So maybe, I need an executive decision on something. I can put these in here and track all of that information. And this also, by the way, links to the knowledge base inside SAP Business One. All right, so I can manage my open issues, and then you can see I'm able to manage those, allocate costs against them, and then, of course, when I found a solution, I'm able to go ahead and I can allocate that solution. And you'll see these are all the solutions that are currently in my knowledge base. All right, you can utilize that functionality there as well. Then we start looking at the financial transactions. So let's say I've got a sales or actually an accounts payable document that I want to now allocate against this. So I can go in here and you'll see here are all of my transactions. And I'm able to choose any one of these transactions and I'm able to allocate the transaction in full or in part against that stage. All right? So all of those transactions I can attach. I can also take my work orders if I'm using my production capability in SAP Business One, and you can see I don't have that configured at the moment, so that's why I'm getting that little message there. But if I'm using the light manufacturing in SAP Business One, I can take a production order and allocate it to a project. All right? And then any other activities that I've done during the week, during the month, any activities that relate to this project, I can go ahead, I can create a new activity, or I can take one of my existing activities and flag it against the project. Hopefully that makes sense so far. And I can see there's just a couple of messages in the chat. Okay, just wanted to make sure that everybody is still able to see the system. Yep, great, so that's all good. A couple of people have asked, can they have hard copies of this presentation? Absolutely, I'll be more than happy to share this presentation deck with you afterwards, as well as the recording of the presentation. And again, as I said, I've only covered like 1/5 of the new functionality that's in 9.2, but I know we've only got an hour. So again, please make sure you check back and look at all of the other sessions that are available and the additional ones that we'll make available for you in the tech tips. But anyway, so I created my project. I've allocated a stage and a task to that project, so I can hit OK. So then I'm able to start generating my project reports. So I can generate an issues list. I can generate a stage analysis list. So I can look at all the projects that are in a particular project stage. I can look at all the projects that are owned by a particular employee. I can look at all the projects that are allocated to a particular business partner. And then all I have to do is just say OK, and it will generate that report for me. So as you're familiar with SAP Business One, it gives you the data in this format first, and then of course you can go ahead and you can generate your report from that. All right? So away you go with that particular functionality. So that's the project management. So a very simple look at that. But not to overstate it, but from my perspective, having been working with SAP Business One for 11 years, I think that's pretty cool. And having been in business now for, I'm going to give away my age now, I joined the workforce when I was 18 and I'm now 52. So I'll let you do the math. What's that? 34 years in the workforce. I can think of hundreds of scenarios where this kind of functionality would have been fantastic for me to have access to in the various roles that I've performed. So again, that's that project management functionality, again, part of SAP Business One 9.2. So let's then dive back across into our presentation. I'm going to touch on one or two more areas, and then I'm going to open up for a Q&A, and we'll go from there. So a couple of other things that have been added into the system from an administration perspective around HR. The relationship map functionality now also incorporates the human resources relationships between where your employees are in the organizational chart, where your employees are with the teams that they belong to, and the roles that they perform. So rather than potentially having to sit there and generate, organizational charts in PowerPoint or whatever the case may be, you can now use these relationship maps inside SAP Business One to generate those. So a couple of other things in the administration functionality. The approvals procedure. Sometimes you get a situation where a document's already been approved and it needs to be updating. So if that document requires approval to update the document, the approval process will now be initiated again to approve any changes made prior to adding the document to the system. So before, you only got one bite at the cherry when you were doing an approval. Now if you change, and so if you change the document, it didn't rerun the approval, now it does. So that's a really cool enhancement to the approvals process. With the import from Excel functionality that's already inside SAP Business One, you can now also import price lists and business partner catalog numbers. For those of you who prefer to use the Enter key on your numeric keypad as the tab key to move through the fields, you can now utilize that. That's just a configuration setting. And you can also use the dot key on your numeric keypad as a separator that you define on the display tab in the general settings window. So you can also go ahead in that settings window and you can disable the add, update, and OK from using the Enter key for doing that. All right, so again, just gives you a lot more flexibility for those of you who are keyboard jockeys par excellence, who, you're so familiar with the system, you can just sit there and look at a piece of paper and type away and put your data in. This can be a handy thing to have. Important point to note, there's been an update to the license mechanism as well, which will now stop people from logging into the same company with the same user code if that user is already logged in as either an indirect user or using browser access. All right, but we give you a choice. You can either cancel your logon when that occurs, or you can confirm that that logon is going to lock out the other user. So maybe you were using the system on one PC and you've gone across to another one in another part of the office and you want to log on again. So it'll just say, hey, you can either cancel the logon or switch off the logon from that other system. So again, that's a nice, easy way of keeping your system running nice and cleanly. The license server as well, many people used to have some challenges with the license server because of the underlying technology that was being used, which was, here's another acronym for you. It was based on a technology called CORBA, which was the Common Object Request Broker Architecture. That's now been replaced. CORBA is now gone. Sounds like, one of James Bond's nemesis organizations. Oh, that was Spectre, wasn't it? Anyway, I digress. So the license server is now based on HTTPS, and it's fully integrated into the architecture of SAP Business One using what's called the System Landscape Directory. So now, if you're not ever involved in the day-to-day maintenance of your SAP Business One system, this is all probably gibberish, mumbo-jumbo to you. You're going, why would I care about this? But if you are involved in the day-to-day maintenance, and you have encountered some of these license server challenges in the past, they are just that. They are now in the past. Great reason to upgrade to version 9.2. So with that, that brings me to the end of my session today. I hope you found it to be worthwhile. Again, as I said, a lot of content to be covered in SAP Business One 9.2 in the updates. So each one of these additional sessions around financial management, around HR, around sales and distribution, you should look at the SAP Business One Tech Tips area on the new Leverage Business One webpage and keep abreast of what's happening there in terms of changes. Now, you can load up what's called an RSS reader. Microsoft Outlook already has one built in. Internet Explorer has one built in. If you're using Google Chrome, you can load one in from the Google Chrome web store, all free of charge. What these RSS readers enable you to do is they enable you to subscribe to our service, and then you will automatically get notifications when there's new content being published. So again, I would encourage you to go ahead and sign up on the Tech Tips page using that RSS feed, and then you will be kept up to date with what's going on. Also, please make sure that wherever you can, you take advantage of the fact that both Brett Mundell and I are spending a lot of time writing a lot of new blogs on the website. So these are blogs that talk about a whole range of different things, from things like how to use the mobility app through to new information about free access to Business One training. What are we doing around support? General articles about Business One development, what's available there, and so on and so forth. So again, you can subscribe to these via email. So every time we provide or we publish a new blog, you'll automatically receive a notification of that. So it's one of those things. As a Leverage customer, we make a lot of information available to you. It's just a matter of being able to communicate that with you effectively, communicate that to you effectively, and let you know exactly what's going on. All right, so take a look at that website. Your feedback is more than welcome. And also, don't forget, if you are a Facebook user, or you like to use Twitter or Google+, we also have our new Leverage Facebook page, okay? And it's just asking me to do a security check here. Boy, oh boy, it'd be nice if I could actually read that text. But anyway, I won't bother going through this. You can sign up and you can take a look at our Facebook page at any particular point in time. We also have the Leverage YouTube channel. So I'd encourage you to also take advantage of the videos that are on here. And this is where you can not only access the tech tips from the web page, but you can also come here onto our YouTube channel and you can find all of these different tech tips. Things like creating new financial periods, how to allocate and deallocate user licenses, and so on and so forth. The new project management feature that I just showed you. Some other features in SAP Business One 9.2 that will all be published up on here and even included into some playlists that just make it easy for you to keep up to date with what's happening with your SAP Business One system and with all things Leverage. So having said that, I am just going to quickly give you the opportunity, if you have any questions, please feel free to fire away in the chat and ask your questions. So I'm going to pause for a second. All right, and here's a question. Could you please briefly go over the pros and cons of SAP via web browser versus SAP via RDP to server? Well, the biggest advantage of the web browser is that you don't need to buy an RDP server. You don't need to buy RDP licenses. You don't need to install any RDP software. So by far and away, the biggest advantage is A, it's free. It's a standard part of your SAP Business One license. It works with both SAP Business One for HANA and SAP Business One on SQL Server. And you don't need to buy any additional third-party products to make it work. You just need to have a machine that is powerful enough to serve up those sessions. All right? It's incredibly quick and easy to deploy. Matter of fact, once you've moved to SAP Business One 9.2, the actual installation process, including opening up your firewall if you're using Microsoft Windows Firewall, that entire process takes less than 3 minutes. So in 3 minutes, you can be up and running with web browser access to your SAP Business One system. So great question, and hopefully I've answered that for you. Okay, any other questions? Now, by the way, the system does show that it's Brett Mundell who's presenting, but again, if in case you joined this session a little bit late, this is actually Richard Duffy. Brett is out and about. Actually, I think he's in Melbourne at the moment, so it's my pleasure to be hosting today's session. Looks like that's it. Looks like we don't have any more questions, but again, please remember that you can reach the Leverage team on 1300 045 046. You can also reach me via my email address. That's richard.duffy@leveretech.com.au. One more question that's come through, and it's a great question. When or how do you initiate the update to 9.2? So we are just in the final stages of what's called our early adopter program. If you would like to get scheduled in to upgrade to 9.2, then simply call us on 1300 045 046 and speak to somebody in the help desk and organize to get scheduled in. You can also visit us on our webpage. Let me show you again another quick way that you can do that. If you visit the new Leverage Business One webpage, all right, you'll see there is an option here, Contact, and there is Brett Mundell's happy smiling face. So again, if you would like to talk to one of us about SAP Business One, please just drop your details into this form. And again, as I said before, once you've filled this form in once, it will automatically pick up your details if you revisit the website. And then we'll be more than happy to get in touch with you and you know, have a conversation. Remember, the only things you really need in here are first name, last name, your email, and your company name. Then we'll be able to look you up in our system and get in touch with you. But of course, if you can give us some of the other information, that's great as well. We've deployed a new system for communicating with you as clients, but we send out all of our newsletters, all of our blog posts from, and so on and so forth. So this just makes that whole process a heck of a lot easier to keep in touch with you and make sure we are giving you the maximum value from being a Leverage customer. Okay? And of course, there goes the live chat again. So remember, you can always use the live chat. It's not really for support, but if you would like somebody from support to contact you, if you, for some reason, you're unable to use the 1300 number, you can always come on here and just drop in a chat message and we'll get somebody in the support team to contact you back. All right? So with that, I think, do we have any customers currently running 9.2 in a Microsoft Azure environment? I do not know the answer to that question, Byron, for 100% sure. I believe I'm 90% sure in saying no, we don't. However, we have quite a lot of experience using Microsoft Azure, and as long as you have scoped up and spec'd up your servers correctly, there should be no reason why 9.2 will not run in an Azure environment. Now, of course, if you want to test it, we are more than happy to help you go through that process. All of our demo servers right now are running off our own dedicated servers in a data center, the same one where Amazon Web Services are located. So, you know, the difference between Amazon Web Services and Azure really only comes down to some of the, well, certainly the billing, the costs, and some of the technologies and tools they give you to manage that. So I do not imagine it's going to be a problem for you to run SAP Business One 9.2 in Azure, but I'm a bit of a geek. I like a challenge. I might see this weekend, I might have a go at spinning it up in an Azure environment, and I'll let you know next week if I run into any problems, okay? So hopefully that helps. All right. So I'm going to wrap up now. Again, please remember, if you do have any further questions, any feedback, if you thought the session was good, if you thought it was bad, tell me why. I'm more than happy to hear from you. And of course, we want to adapt, adjust, and make these sessions as good as we can, so you get maximum value from them. So having said that, I'm now going to wrap up, give you back the rest of your day. I hope you have a great day. Thank you again for being a Leverage Technologies customer. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you as the year progresses.